So, yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Hi, Carole.
I'm just going to put you on speaker. That's better.
Okay, cool. So yeah, it's awesome to get together. We had this initiative to talk today a little bit about Mental Awareness Month, which is in October, and yeah, I'm with my colleague that I met you in Mind Freaks and also in Ecology, where we get to know each other or got to know each other. So yeah, why don't you, I'm going to give it over to you and talk to us a little bit about the day and the month and yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to be doing this with my colleague Petrolene today, all the way from sunny South Africa. So South Africa and Scotland here today, collaborating because today, the 10th of October, 2020, is World Mental Health Day, and probably the most important mental health day. The months of the lockdown and loss have had a huge impact on so many of us. So I think that prioritising mental health has never been more important. So Petrolina, we want to have a wee look at now is what is mental health? So what does mental health mean for you?
Mental health. So people that have coached with me and know me know I have this whole rhyme, and I teach around the whole thing about your thoughts, right? That influence your emotions, the emotions that influence the behavior and how you act. And if you do that long enough, however that behavior looks like, that becomes who you are. It becomes your identity. And then it comes back to your thoughts. So you run in that whole circle your whole life, and it can be a good circle for you or a bad circle for you. For me, the mental health aspect is all about you. How do you make sure that your emotions, I almost want to say, stay intact, or how do you make sure that your thoughts does not influence your emotions that create that unhelpful behavior at the end of the day? Because we cannot prevent what comes into our head. We cannot prevent what thoughts we get, but we can certainly manage the emotions that comes along with that. Well, manage, but if and change for those who do struggle to manage it.
Absolutely, and I think because we've both studied cognitive behavioural therapy, there, this cognitive triangle, as they call it. So our thoughts create our emotions, which in turn go on to create our behaviour. And I think with this knowledge, we're able to intercept that when we feel the unhelpful emotion or we see ourselves performing unhelpful behaviour. So for me and you both, we're both great fans of cognitive behavioural therapy. But looking at a bit about taking the picture out a little bit here, first of all, and looking about mental health, for me, it includes our emotional well-being, our psychological well-being, and also our social well-being as well. It affects how we think, act, and how we feel. And I'm just thinking, so if we were to talk about mental health, everybody has mental health, everybody experiences mental health. Sometimes we have good mental health, sometimes we have, less good mental health, not as good mental health. So if we were looking for, signs that we can look for within ourselves, or even indeed those round about us, what signs would you look for in yourself or other people? For me, I'm thinking, if I was looking at somebody that perhaps had, a longer lasting sort of sadness or, that irritability, that sort of highs and low moods, excessive fear, and of course the favourite, and I think what I coach most on is worry and anxiety. Also, other signs for me can be, that social withdrawal, just withdrawing from society in general, and also changing in eating and sleeping. So I'm just wondering, do you have any thoughts on, how we can spot, signs of mental health in ourselves or others. I know we've got that self-awareness within ourselves, but just to bring that that general awareness to, let's look to see when, we can spot this in ourselves and others, in order that once we've got that self-awareness, we can take some action. What do you think?
I want to say unhelpful behavior. I know there's people that's going to say, but yeah, I eat too much. I eat junk food all the time. I binge eat, whatever. That's unhelpful behavior. It doesn't mean there's mentally something wrong with me, which brings me back to the word mental, which I think is completely misunderstood globally. Because for me it is also about, and you've mentioned it is more about I like to use the word emotional well-being, because that is really about everything that surrounds your emotions and then also well-being in general. So I want to say unhelpful behavior that does not serve you well, because at the end of the day, if you get away with it now, it might work for you. But there's going to be a point in time in your life where you're not going to be able to get away with that unhelpful behavior. It's going to come and haunt you. It's going to negatively impact even your health, well-being. So yeah, I will say in general, unhelpful behavior that doesn't serve you well.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. Just to echo what you said there, Petrolene, a lot of people you do find this is the over drinking, they're overeating, it's and as well as relationships, a big part about, I think, is our mental health is our ability to form relationships as well. First of all, of course, the relationship with ourselves, and we've got the self-worth there, but being able to maintain, healthy relationships with other people, I think that plays a huge part in our mental health. So now we've kind of established, a little bit, more about mental health and what it is, and the signs to look for, and that self-awareness. I want to bring in just a little bit more about what you do, because I know that you're a coach, Petrolene, all the way out there in sunny South Africa. Can you tell me a little bit more about, who you are, what you do, and what type of people that you like to work with?
Yeah. So I like to say I grew up in corporate, right? So I spent most of my years in corporate, and started my career as an executive coach about a year ago to pursue really supporting executives in the space of burnout and recovery of burnout. So those are the people that I focus on, that are suffering, executives and leaders, high-performing leaders that are suffering from burnout and all are recovering from it. And yeah, the clients, like I said, mainly people that I have are people that find themselves in high stress situations, even though not specifically burnout and recovery, but I also do work with some professional athletes. But yeah, people that find them in that space, and we see that now a lot, especially, and I know we will talk a little bit more about that, is the whole thing around burnout, and how prevalent it is now, especially, which is for some people might find it strange that it's so prevalent now, but yeah, that's the folks that I do like to work with, and where my my company name, Explosive Minds, for those of the folks that want to go and look it up, Explosive Minds with the X. So yeah, which sort of symbolizes the power we have in our minds to change our lives and to change our future, even with the processes and the coaching that I use. What are you up to, Carole?
Oh, so that's fantastic. What a fantastic name, Explosive Minds. Because it's all about that empowerment, isn't it? And I think when you realise that we really do hold the power within ourselves all the time, it's really a real turning point there.
Yeah.
Life, it takes away that victimhood. So that Explosive Minds is taking away all the barriers. I love that. Also loved what you said there about working with athletes. And I know that you're very into your health and you're into the gym, and also I'm into running as well. And perhaps we can incorporate that into the wider role
Mm.
of mental health and the overall picture of, our eating and our nutrition as well and our exercise. So my name is Carole Morrison. I am from Scotland, and I am a transformational life coach. And I help men and women. I help people basically wake up to themselves, and I help them design a life where they're living a life in purpose. And I have found that the main barrier to this really is unhelpful emotions. And the one that I'm particularly keen on working with is anxiety. And I know you get many different types of anxiety, but I'm passionate about helping people work with anxiety and guiding them through subconscious beliefs that are holding people back in order that they can live a life where they're free to thrive, instead of just surviving each day. So I can go into a little bit more about that as the chat progresses, but in a nutshell, that's what I do basically.
So before we go on, I want to ask you a question, because we hear this as coaches, right? We know we hear this word a lot, to live your life with purpose. And explain to the people watching, as a coach, what's the difference between a person not living their life with purpose and a person living their life with purpose? Because I think there's a lot of people out there that think they live a life of purpose. But if they really have to dive into it and, take them through all of the coaching and processes, then a lot of people actually realize that they've been wasting most of their time. So if you had to tell people in maybe 2 sentences, what would you say? How does your life look like if you live it with purpose?
I would say, yeah, absolutely fulfillment, empowerment, confident, and the sentence I'm going to use is, he who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow. And that's taken from a fantastic book. I think the difference, well, if you look at, I'm going off tangent here at your 2 sentences.
No worries.
If you look at what your life looks like when you don't have purpose, I mean, you're bringing back in the emotions of, anxiety, that angst, that, that kind of, almost that depression as well, when we don't have a reason for being, when we don't have something greater than ourselves to live for, we're left there at a bit of a loss, and it causes dysfunctional behaviour, dysfunctional emotions. And if you believe what I do, you put your hand in your heart, and it beats for a reason. I really do feel we're put in this earth for a reason. It gives us that sense, that reason to get out of bed in the morning, and to really leave that legacy behind, to leave something behind, that sense of meaning. And also when you're in that flow, when you're following your passion, because of course your purpose is driven by your passion. When you're following your passion, your job, your career, it doesn't end and then your other life begins. You're living your purpose as whatever you do, and you don't have to separate your career from your leisure time. So sorry about that. That was
No.
sentence.
No, not at all. It gave me some time to just check if there are not any questions. I do want to say that for the folks that do watch us live, if you are on Facebook or on YouTube, if we do see your question, we'll do our best to answer it. Otherwise, we'll make sure that at least afterwards you'll get a response from one of us. But yeah, that's a great way of mentioning it, right? Because yeah, like I said, a lot of people, even I was under the illusion that I'm living my life with a purpose. And it brings, I know we spoke about this yesterday, and also we might go into this today, but it comes down to this whole thing about, at least in my area where I coach people, I get a lot of people that confuses their career goals. And they think if they have a career goal, now they have personal goals. And then when they wake up one day, maybe hating their job, or whatever the reason might be, it's really not so much about the job. And I see that with people a lot. people's first instinct that if they hate their job is that their job is the problem, which is, I'm going to, there's no stats for it, but I want to say like 75% of the time it's not the case. It's really about what you've mentioned, this whole area of fulfillment that they don't have and that they lack, but that they're not aware of. Most people not aware of. So yeah, it's a great way of saying it.
Yeah, I guess it's what that wakening up is, and you know this as well, Petrolene. You know, when we're involved in coaching, we've been through the process ourselves.
Yeah.
What qualifies us to coach other people is that we have been there. I have been that power and disempowered person. But I think when you have been coached before, you know, the power is tremendous. The results are tremendous. For me, it's almost like seeing, you know, seeing a different dimension, seeing a different light. You can see life completely differently. You know, the power is great. What I want to talk about now is, I mean, the purpose is fantastic. It's a whole topic in itself, you know, what is the purpose of purpose. But let's go into, I want to hear a little bit more about what you're looking at the moment. What's a hot topic in your coaching at the moment?
Wow, yeah, that's a loaded question. But especially with COVID, and I was like, I'm not going to say the word COVID today, but I mean, it is what it is. The whole thing around businesses sending their staff home. What was interesting to see is the people working from home, the amount of burnout that we're sitting with now. And I'm not surprised at all. You know, there's this whole thing about working from home. Before I became a full-time coach, I also worked from home for about 4 or 5 years. But there used to be, I think it has changed now, but there used to be this mentality, right, that working from home is really just for the elite group of people. You have to be like the big boss if you want to work like at home, because there was this mentality that if you do work at home, you're not really doing anything and you just sit there and you do nothing, and people are lazy that work from home, which I now see at least the complete opposite, right? Where people need to work from home. One of my clients the other day told me she's getting up at 4, 5 o'clock in the morning to work a bit. And then when her kids wake up, she needs to homeschool her kids. And then in between the homeschooling and the morning, she needs to attend meetings. Then she needs to try and keep her children out of the room or the office or where she's working. And then she needs to keep the children busy, not necessarily always able to do it with schoolwork, but she needs to keep the children busy. She is, especially the women out there, men also, but especially the women out there. And I mean, I'm thinking like my heart goes out to the single moms, right? Or single parents, because I know there's single dads as well looking after kids. They have to do everything. They like CEO of the household, but they have to still do a full-time job. Now, from home, I know there's been a lot of employers that has been very graceful towards the employees, but there's always been also been employers, and I coach some of these clients that just they don't care how you get the work done. They just still need to do it. And now it's almost like, yeah, people are starting to go back to work a little bit, and even more. But now we're getting into that thing of people and I believe you're going to talk about that, people leaving the company for whatever reason. So they're not appointing more people, right? Because a lot of the companies are under financial stress at the moment. So that work needs to go to somebody else. And that's sort of the other side of people working from home. They have to deal with all of these things. I read an article the day before yesterday that the burnout rate, they only did a survey in US states, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be similar in the rest of the world. The burnout rate now is 34% higher than it was last year this time, which is it's a hell of a lot higher. And I mean, like I said, no surprise there because of the state that people had to work in, working from home, trying to juggle absolutely everything that they had to do. So yeah, that is the biggest thing I would say I see now. Just the struggle for these folks to cope with that. if I have to, in the beginning, I know there's been a lot of advice when working from home, stay with your schedule, get up at the same time, even make sure that the kids still have a school schedule, all of that stuff. And I'm not going to go into that. But even I would say now we're at a point where it is extremely important that people tell their managers what it is that they need. They need to go to their managers and tell their managers that their plate is too full. I just in the week spoke to a client where it was interesting to see, and I, from my own experience, I know we do this when we sit in the corporate world. We confuse pressure with volume of work. And people feel bad and they feel guilty because they can't deal with all the work. And when they come to me, they tell me, I feel guilty because I cannot deal with all of this pressure. I'm a director. I should be able to do this. I'm a vice president. I should be able to deal with all of this pressure. And I want to deal with it because it shows that I can work under pressure. I can do challenging things and stuff like that. But then I always ask them, are we talking about challenges? Are we talking about pressure, which is most of us want to be able to deal with pressure, effectively? But are we talking about volume of work? Because it's two different things. It's just you doesn't matter what you do if you have just a tremendous amount of work to do. And I mean, I've been there. I know how it goes. I know that it's just too much. It's just so much work. It's impossible for you to do it even in 10 hours in a day. So I'm not talking about people that sit and do nothing and they procrastinate and they don't get to their work. I'm talking about people that just have too much on their plate and they're working as efficient as they can. They work as fast as they can, but they still do not get to what they want to do. I mean, I hear managers, I know it's different for different countries, but we are sort of at the tail end of the year where performance appraisals are starting up. People need to be evaluated so that they can be evaluated for a salary increase next year, early next year. I speak to so many managers that just tell me they have so much to do. They have not even done a single performance appraisal yet. And these things eat at the managers. They feel so guilty about it. So for the one thing I would say at this point in time, you have to have the conversation with your manager. Now, here's the thing. There are different levels, right? So if the first manager goes to the second manager might feel exactly the same. And the third level manager might feel exactly the same. But it is so important that every manager talk to their line manager and they have to have the open conversation with them to say that the work is too much, and not so much just tell them I can't cope. You have to tell them, what are you giving up? I'm giving up all the time with my family. I'm giving up any time to look after my kids. I'm giving up cooking a dinner for my family, whatever the case might be, because we tend to go to our managers and tell them, I can't cope. Please, can you take something away from me and lighten my plate? And that's the end of the conversation. But people need to hear, what are you as an executive or a leader? What do you have to give up to be able to do everything that they require from you? But yeah, that would be my main advice. Like I said, the whole thing about the making a schedule, do this. There are these small things that you can do to become more productive. But I think we're beyond those discussions now. Most of the people out there know how to be productive. They've probably exhausted every avenue to be as productive as they can be, but they still stay behind with the amount of work they have to do. And then I would also just plead to companies to allow their staff to go for help. Give them the time out to go for help. If you have an employee that is burnt out, Give them the opportunity to go and ask for help and work through that help. It will serve them so much better on the long run. I mean, companies know these things, right? You can choose to support an employee, help an employee, give them the necessary tools to get through this, or you can get a sick letter from the employee in 3 months' time and they are booked off for 6 months. So, yeah.
Oh, that's absolutely fantastic. I've got a few questions here for you, Petrolene, if that's okay. That's really interesting for me to hear that. It seems to me, number one, that home working is here to stay. So it's, it's adapting to this new normal of home working. And I found it particularly interesting there when you talked about the difference between the volume of work and pressure. And I'm wondering just who is putting the pressure on there? So, for example, if I was an employee and I was feeling pressure, I mean, where's that pressure coming from? Is that coming from something external?
So, yeah, so that's an interesting question. So my first response is going to be that every individual is responsible for making it what they think it is. So if I think it's pressure, I am making the pressure, or I am defining it or labeling it as pressure. But you often get employees that say, and I guess that's debatable and between the coaches as well. You often get employees that say, oh, I operate best when I do things under pressure. And that is good pressure. That is, and I can go on. I did a whole series about this. It's on my YouTube channel about optimal level of performance and where people really perform optimally and at what level and how do they feel, because we all need a little bit of anxiety, because if we never had no anxiety, we would be like totally lethargic. But having that awareness of where that optimal level of performance is for every individual is what the awareness is all about. But yeah, short answer, we are unfortunately the people that are putting that pressure on ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. So if it's like a gift, then if my employer gave me, here's the pressure. It's like a gift. If you would choose to accept that, then it goes back to the person giving it to you. Yeah. So what I'm thinking is you can have two different people or three different people, that are in the same activating event with the same amount of work, and it would be their belief about that situation that's causing the pressure. However, with compassion, with the compassion that we have for ourselves, a really interesting point you mentioned there was the communication style with your manager or whoever would be you would be working under. So I'm thinking, what type of tips could you give about, communicating? Because what I feel just now, because we're remotely working, and your manager or your boss is not able to, actively view your workload and view what's going on, how would you communicate that upward communication? What tips could you give people about that?
So I just quickly want to mention something that you've mentioned now is when I was a manager, used to tell people, you teach people how to treat you, right? So if you teach them how to treat you, they will continue to treat you that way. But to come back to the tips, I want to give one single tip is questions. We do not ask enough questions. When somebody tells somebody else, let's say you tell me something and I don't ask enough questions so that I can get clarity of the situation, I'm going to make up my own story because you're not sharing all the details. That's just how we communicate. We don't always share all the details. Our brains process the message a certain way, and we go in and collect the messages a certain way, and then we share what we like in categories. I almost want to mention it. But we really need to be getting better at asking clarifying questions so that we can understand the situation. Everybody be on the same page. I think the lack of asking the right questions, and that is from both parties, So even if your manager, if you go to your manager and say, or your supervisor and say that I have too much work, this is what I need to give up in order to get to this, and your manager says you just have to do it. You as an employee, whether you're a manager or just an employee, you as an employee also have an obligation to ask a question. So what specifically will happen if I cannot do this? And I did a whole series about certain questions that people can ask that folks can go and watch, but don't just accept the first question. Ask clarifying questions so that everybody can get on the same page. I used to, something that I've done when I worked with people and we had to agree on deliverables, and people would let me know they need it today. Because what happens, we work in a global environment, right? You log onto your computer and there's an email and say, I need this today. And then I would first start to ask the question, okay, for what do you need it? And then they'll say, and then I'll ask, okay, when is this meeting? Then they'll tell me, no, this meeting is at the end of October. So then I know, no, you don't need it today. You just need it today because you feel it's urgent. So then you can sort of steer the conversation into, okay, so if I send this to you next week, you'll still have it in time for the meeting. So then you sort of, what can they say? Unless they need it to do something with it before that time, but then they have no option as to say, yes, it's fine. But get on video with people to see them face to face, and pick up the phone. Email is the first thing you can do. Email is not the best thing you can do. Pick up the phone or get on video if you want to communicate things like this with your supervisor.
Yeah, I know as well that one of the things that I use when communicating, that up communication is instead of going, I know that, being a manager, instead of going and if I was a manager receiving a complaint, that by my employee providing me with a solution instead of, just moaning, but saying, this is the problem. Here are the repercussions if this is not dealt with, and here's some options, here's some solutions there as well. I think that that would bode quite well, instead of looking as if you're moaning.
True.
I think that the home working is really here to stay, and I think that your coaching, sounds really valuable and surprising to me to hear the other side, because I'm thinking, that people love working from home, but it's so interesting to hear that, and I know that you do have a lot of clients, Petrolene, that your coaching is of a really high standard. I'm just wondering, how effective is it for business? Looking at it from a different point of view, for employees to be working from home. So we looked at it from a managerial point of view, we've looked at it from an employee point of view, but from a business point of view, how effective is that? Do we have any information on that?
So apart from the fact that you can support a manager through their emotional well-being, right, the manager can then take that information, and I actually encourage my clients to give them a little bit of insight into what I've done with them, and I encourage them, go back and do the same stuff with your employees, coach them the same way, some of the things they can use. But from a business perspective, personally, I also do corporate workshops in helping employees and businesses, the entire business, in coping with burnout and recovery, and just having better strategies and better ways for pursuing excellence. Because at the end of the day, that's what everybody wants to do. They want to be great at something. They are pursuing something. That's why they're working at this space. But there are a good way, a healthy way to pursue excellence, and there are an unhealthy way to pursue excellence. So that's just for corporations, definitely a great asset if they can incorporate even coaching for their staff or whoever might need it to carry them, not just during this time, but even going forward.
Oh, absolutely. It sounds fantastic that you're doing these workshops.
Yeah.
Because I think, people assume that if you're a manager that you know how to manage, you have the people skills and you've got the skills in that particular niche. But, I think that it's a lot more complicated, to be an effective and popular manager,
Yeah.
popular. So the fact that you're creating workshops sounds really advantageous.
Yeah, no, definitely. And we see, and I'll talk a little bit at the end about some workshops that we are doing online, especially now for people also to help them through this time. But yeah, the thing that people also need to remember is that even if you walk into a business today and you do a workshop for their staff, it's really an investment. You're not going to see the results the next day. It doesn't mean you can push them further for the coming weeks. They need the time to grow. They need the time to implement things. I mean, one of the biggest things we see now also, especially around merger and acquisitions, there's so many companies that are changing, right? Because they're being taken over, they merge, and companies falling apart, unfortunately, and staff need to be integrated into other companies. And this constant change, apart from what's going on at home, is just, it's putting a lot of strain on people.
That sounds really good that you're able to go out there and facilitate that. I think that's a really important niche at the moment.
Yeah. So, on your side, Carole, you mentioned a little bit earlier, I mean, you are really looking into the anxiety, I think, which is something that, I mean, I see also, especially in this area. What is your approach and who are the people that you're working with? I know we spoke yesterday, I know your coaching session sounds very intriguing, the way you guys do it. So yeah, what are you guys doing?
So I think that the hot topic for me at the moment, Petrolina, is living with COVID. I think we've been through the fear, and we're still, we have fear and we have that uncertainty, and I think we need that small level of anxiety there just to keep us on our toes so we're not complacent about the virus. I think we've got the ongoing the loneliness and the disconnection, the fear of not belonging. It's still in the background, but the area at the moment that I'm feeling is a really hot topic is the issue that I've found is the redundancy and people being made unemployed and actually even the fear of unemployment. So working alongside companies, helping them to help their employees or working one-to-one with employees who are being made redundant is a real area for coaching. And also working with individuals, because at the end of the day, we're not employees, we're individuals as well. We're human beings. So working and coaching human beings, and much of what they're experiencing right now is the anxiety. So anxiety of looking to the future and fearing that they might be made redundant. So when you actually even think about the word anxiety, I mean, it's massive and there's different types of anxiety, but anxiety is apprehension about a future event, which will threaten you or your self-esteem, but also your gross underestimation of your ability to deal with that. So anxiety is an area that I really am passionate about coaching on. And also confidence, for people that have been made redundant, they tend to find that their confidence takes a huge dip. And that feeling of empowerment and that feeling of loss is essentially grief. Because people may have been in an organisation for, a part of their life. But there's really one of the main things and the main tips that I want to give away here is it used to be in the past when you had a job, it was a job and that was separate from your ideal life, and you tolerated the job and you lived for the weekend. But I think more and more what we're seeing now is people that are really identifying who they are with what they're doing. I am a manager, I am an athlete, they're thinking that's who they are. So when actual fact it's not who they are, it's what they do. Okay? Because human beings versus human doings. We're human beings, we be, we don't do. So your job is something that you do, something that you perform. And I've seen so many clients attaching their self-worth to what they do. I've not performed well here, therefore I am a failure, therefore I am not good enough. So when you take that back and put that in the picture of redundancy, you know, the common feeling is, for some people it can be, so this is my fault, I'm a failure, you know, I get paid off, why me? But when we're looking at our core identity here and how it affects our self-worth, it's a real coaching model there. Also, we've got the, you know, lots of clients and lots of people, even outside this topic, it's that drama triangle, that victim triangle, you know, that I've been hard done to, I've been paid off, I'm a victim, poor me, who can I blame? It's COVID is here, it's all the government's fault, it's all the politicians' fault, it's all everybody else's fault. And looking to blame and being stuck in that trap of blaming all the time and maintaining that I'm a victim sort of mode. And, you know, really looking deeper into subconscious beliefs. This could be something that was developed a way back in childhood. If you're able to follow the patterns, you've got that level of real self-awareness of how you're feeling, how you're behaving, and you're able to see that victim mindset. And when you think about it, really, if you were to be paid off, if you're fearing being paid off, if you have been paid off, you're being made redundant, think about it this way, it's your job that no longer exists, it's not you.
Yeah.
So would you disappear if your job doesn't exist? Absolutely not. So the question is, who are you? There is so much more to you than what you do. In fact, how can we turn this time of uncertainty into a real opportunity? I really truly believe that we can. And again, it's that mindset. You can take two people that have been made redundant, and one person, number one, might think this is terrible, it's a disaster, I have no money, who am I have no connections at my work anymore, where's my sense of achievement? What will people think? Who can I compare myself to? What is my expectations of me? So what we're doing is we're looking at what we have that's in our control and what is out with our control. And what do we have control over? How can we use this as an opportunity? You know, I think, you know, when you take it back to the very beginning again, we never take the time to take a step back and look at the picture. We never make the time to ask ourselves the questions, am I happy in this job? Who am I? What am I going to look back with regret? You've been made redundant. This is your chance to start again, to start living, to start thriving, not just surviving, to do the things you've always wanted to do. This is your opportunity. I feel very passionate about that. And
I can see. I wanted to interrupt you there to say you speak with so much passion, and I'm pretty sure that when you do, and I can just imagine when you work with clients, how that transfers over to the clients, right? It must be an absolute amazing experience for them to work with you. I want to quickly say one thing, because the stuff that you're saying reminds me of the fact that our minds, right, can only understand present tense. Our minds cannot deal with the future because it hasn't happened, cannot deal with the past. It only comprehends the present tense. And I love the fact that you said about what anxiety is. And I want you, sorry for the interruption before you go on, I want you to just tell the people again so that they can hear what is anxiety.
So anxiety is the apprehension about a future event. So say, for example, you're thinking, what if I get COVID-19? You know, it's all the what if questions, all the worry questions. There's a really fantastic tip about worry there. You know, take that worry and set it a time, a specific time each day, 15 minutes each day when you do nothing but worry. You might find that some days you miss that out, or write your worries down, but we're having it time specific. We're structuring a time zone for worrying only. So anxiety is apprehension about a future event that's not yet happened. So it's in the future, and we're making stories up about it in our head that it's going to threaten us, and it's going to threaten not just us, but our self-esteem. You know, if I catch COVID-19, if I lose my job, what will people say? What will people think? You know, how will I cope? So you're worrying about something that's not even happened. But in addition to that, it's also if the worst case scenario, which is what you're imagining, did happen, you're grossly underestimating your ability to deal with that. You know, we've got the best case scenario, we've got the worst case scenario, but we're looking here, or you're looking here, and most people, we all do this, we do have levels of anxiety. We're looking at the worst case scenario and our ability to deal with that. Yeah.
Fantastic. And I'm again thinking about, you know, when we are kids, babies are only born with two fears, right? Fear of failing, fear of falling, being dropped. So they basically have no fears, right, when they are born. And when they grow up as kids, they live in this imaginary world, right, where everything is possible. And here we sit as adults, live in this imaginary world of everything that can go wrong. So it's amazing how we actually evolve. If you think of how kids think about the world when they very young, before this influence, and adults, by the time we're adults, what we can worry about.
I think absolutely, you know, and it's that conditioning, you know, in childhood. You know, they say, give me the child that's 7, I'll show you the man or the woman. But this conditioning we've received mostly from our caregivers. You know, there is media, there is friendships as well. So if you do have children, you know, and you're looking for coaching and bringing up children, have coaching for yourself. See the difference, because it's a download, it's a computer download that we're receiving all the time, and what we can't do and what we can do. Let's go back to before that conditioning. So part of coaching is to take our conditioned mind, really, and to uncondition ourselves, which is not easy because we're already conditioned. And that's why a coach is essential. Coaches will hold up mirrors to your blind spots so you can see what you cannot see, because we've already been conditioned, I'm afraid. And we've been conditioned all the time through television, social media. So let's undo all this and start again. You know, and I would ask the question to somebody who has perhaps been made redundant, you know, and I know they're going through this is not fair. Well, let's look at the thought distortion in this, the fallacy of fairness. What is fair in life? Nothing is fair in life. You know, criminals get set free from prison, people get put in prison that are not committed any crime. Life isn't fair. But here's the question, why does it have to be fair? So first of all, it's the acceptance of the situation. When we can accept that life isn't fair and it is what it is, what's within our control, what's within our control, once we've got that acceptance, that lets us release that anxiety. When we release that anxiety and we actually look inside and think, who am I? What do I want? Who do I want to become? We can start again by asking ourselves the questions such as, if I knew I couldn't fail in life, what would I do? Who would I be? So it really does turn it on its head, you know, this uncertainty that we're feeling right now. We can look at it with fear and dread and, you know, things will never be the same, or we can look at it as an opportunity. And it's all about our beliefs. They're in the middle. You've got the event of what's happened, and we've got our emotions and our behaviours. But in between, we've got different ways of looking at that. And yeah, there is lots of setting up a strategy. There's looking at your finances. But most of all, it's finding out what you want, why you want it, finding out that passion, and then we set out the strategy. And everything is possible.
I want to ask you, I'm sure there will be people listening, right, that sit in the situation. They contemplating the fact that they might lose their job. I know, even if now we ask people, how do you know that? They're going to say, I just know that. It's going to happen, but they believe it's, the belief is so ingrained. What is the, maybe one or two tips that you would give them at this point in time, what they should do, and maybe even how do they deal with that, even after listening to this conversation? What can they immediately go and do to start to deal with it?
Well, I think the first thing is by asking yourself, I know I'm going to use my job, where's the evidence? Is it based on fact, or is it based on feeling? But this is not something I feel is easy to do on your own. Yourself, Petrolene, coaching is, I actually don't even want to begin to tell you how powerful coaching is. I want people to experience it for themselves. Come along and have a complimentary coaching session on me. I'm offering this on World Mental Health Awareness Day 2020. Contact me and we can have a coaching session around this. But I think the thing is having that self-awareness and asking yourself, is it true? Is it based on fact? Is it based on feeling? So a lot of the time we make up stories in our heads about things. And it is really just our subconscious trying to keep us safe. But, it's not always truthful.
Wonderful. So where can people get a hold of you? And what do you have out there available currently for folks that are looking to work on their anxiety?
So with regards to anxiety and any unhelpful emotions, we'll post the details below. I'm offering 7-session package, a 10-session package, and an initial coaching session, which is complimentary, to find out if we're a really good fit for each other. In addition to that, what I'm actually doing here, Petrolina, and I'm just going to ask you the same in just a wee minute, is I've taken it outdoors. I've taken my coaching outdoors because I believe that the connection we have with nature is part of the bigger picture. So connecting with nature, that interconnection, if you're walking with an animal or somebody else, and doing coaching along the way, for me, it's mixing everything together to really come up to the best possible environment, to feel you're able to express yourself. People always are able to express themselves in an outdoor natural environment. So I'm mixing that, the outdoor walking with the coaching. So the next walk that is available will be this Sunday, actually, and it's down in Hamilton. So, and the weather's going to be fine. I know it's going to be fine.
The weather is going to be fine.
For Scotland, that's unusual. So please contact me. I would love to have you join us. And the topic this Sunday is purpose, which is so relevant to what we've been talking about. And we've got so much to talk about around purpose. And with regards to redundancy, fear, anxiety, confidence, then my contact details will be left below this. But I'd like to
wonderful
and ask you the same thing. What do you have going on right now?
So upcoming on the 23rd, we have a workshop that is free for people that they can attend. Fight for Your Recovery is the name of the workshop, where we will sort of talk about something in a similar line in terms of finding your why, really why. Because I always tell people that's the flagpole on the mountain, right? You can go up a mountain, but there's so much to the top of the mountain that you don't know. People only see like this top here, but when you're actually on top of the mountain, it's a huge area. So you need the flag post up there to know where you need to go. So we will work through that. It's a 90-minute workshop. But then my details I'll also drop below in the description. They can get hold of me on Facebook, on LinkedIn, xPlosiveminds.co.za. And also, so currently what I'm also doing is, interestingly enough, a little bit around the anxiety and the stress, sort of linked to the burnout, but not so much for executives. But we have our matriculants that's starting their final exams on the 4th or 5th of November. And we know it's been an horrendous year for the kids in schools, and a lot of these matriculants really bargained on a mock exam. They bargained, so there's a lot of things that were at stake at during this time so that they can enter and go to university. But I do offer group coaching sessions for matriculants. So obviously the price is a little, it's more affordable. And what we will do is get together every week to talk about topics that is worrisome for them, and to just help them through this process up and until they get their results, which is in January next year. But to make sure really that they are okay during this time, and that they have a support system in place during this time. A lot of people think the matriculants only need support now, they only need support while they write, but they really need support up and until they get their results. And even if it's something that they didn't expect, help them then at that time to sort of make sense of it and figure out what they need to go and do about it. So that's really something that I've put in place, felt I wanted to put in place now to provide extra support to these matriculants. Details about that is on my website. So yeah, that was one thing that we implemented now. And the workshop we have upcoming on the 23rd of October.
That sounds fantastic. So I like that, you're working, that's a really affordable, similar to my work, it's something that's really affordable as well. Is this something that, for the children you're talking about in South Africa, that matriculants, yeah?
Yeah,
Is that the
yeah,
children?
yeah. Matriculants, they are the grade 12. So essentially the folks that writing their final grade 12 exams. So yeah.
What
We
age
call
is
them
that we're talking about?
18. Yeah.
18, okay, right.
Yeah.
So is that something that's available worldwide then? What you're
Yeah, so in fact, anybody can join now. I do know that other schools, like in the UK, and the terms in the US and the UK is different. Interestingly enough, I know there's a lot of anxiety or type of stress around kids going back to school in the US. But yeah, it's anybody can join. It's available. It's online, completely online. The kids don't need to leave. Well, probably not kids anymore, but the young adults don't need to leave their home, and they can do it from the comfort of their home. And we'll get online every week at a specific time. And yeah, just have a group coaching session. The sessions are limited to 10 people only, so that we can make sure that everybody that's in that particular group gets the value that they need from that coaching session. But yeah, open to all, available to all. It is online, so anybody can join.
That's fantastic. I think there's so many kids in the UK that could really benefit from that coaching, for that specific age group, because that age group is a really vulnerable age group, about 18.
Yeah.
So I think there could be a lot of people out here that maybe listen to this that really find that, of value for children. So I like the wide spectrum that you've got there. Really two different niches, really, that you're able to coach on.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so yeah, it was, I have to say, sort of, I don't want to call it a last minute decision, but it was something I toiled with a lot, especially because of the circumstances now, and the everything that was going on with the schools, and schools being closed, kids had to go online and struggling, and whatever the case might be. But yeah, just to make sure that they can go write the exams with confidence, and at least know what options do they have available. You see, the thing is, when we don't have options, that's when we start to freak out. We and everything falls apart. But the moment you can just like open up the door for people and help them explore and see all the other options, then that anxiety quiets down a little bit. But yeah, you would know that. Yeah.
Well, absolutely. I think you realise that you do have the power all along within yourself to make choices. The choices might take a little work, but when you present somebody with choices and say, "Here's your choices," empower yourself to pick one of these, and what do you need to find out about this choice, and what's the disadvantages and advantages of this choice. I really like the sound of that for kids online. So that's mostly around anxiety.
Yeah, well, we're not necessarily just going to coach anxiety. The focus is on getting these kids through the exams with whatever issues they might have. But I suspect the majority will be nervous anxiety about whatever is the future is going to hold for them. Will they have enough time to study? Will they, the whole thing around just sitting for those final exams.
Oh, absolutely.
So
Sorry.
no, I just wanted to say, so, interestingly enough, some of them actually also might sit with burnout, right? Because they're going to try and cram as much in as they can. But yeah, so we're going to take them through that for the next 3 months. But I quickly want to come back to something that you mentioned about your walking coaching. It sounds extremely interesting. How long is a session like that? So take us a little bit through the format of what it looks like.
Oh, yeah, so thanks for asking. So we meet in a beautiful surrounding, and sometimes we change the surrounding. So my local town, Hamilton, it's a beautiful place we're going to be. So it's a forest walk. So the walk is approximately 2 hours, and it's affordable to all. So it's only £5 for 2 hours. And the structure is we will be meeting as a group. We'll be introducing ourselves. We'll be talking, there'll be lots of questions, lots of really deep digging questions on what is purpose? What is the purpose of having a purpose? What happens when we don't have a purpose? What happens when we're living our life purpose? We're going to take, and do we need a purpose? Is there pressure put on us, maybe even for young people, to find out having a purpose? So there's lots of really deep questions there. We're then going to walk in twos. Social distancing is absolutely paramount, and we'll be walking in line with government regulations. So we'll be walking in twos for perhaps 20 minutes, and then we'll be changing walking partner, and we'll be asking different questions when we change partner. We'll congregate at the end. We'll just go over our findings and any takeaways we have around purpose. And then people are free to go to the cafe and connect even further. And I think now, for single people living on their own without family during this time, they really are isolated. So even just getting outdoors and being able to connect with people, but also being able to have some coaching along the way. And of course, when you're asking deep questions like that, it gives you a deeper understanding of whoever you're walking with. So we're not just having, we're having a real authentic connection with new people. We're having coaching, we're having interconnection, we're having connection. So for mental health, for me, it ticks every single box, and the exercise as well. It will be a 2-hour walk, but it'll be a really leisurely pace. There are thoughts to maybe have, something a bit more high paced. But for me, it ticks every single box, and everybody's welcome.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And
it
also
sounds amazing.
Yeah. And just one more question about you working with young people, because I know in the UK, the largest rise in our unemployment is between 16 to 24-year-olds. And we have just recently put restrictions on hotels and restaurants. So the tourism industry and the hospitality industry are really taking a downturn. And that's where a lot of these young people, 16 to 24, are working right now. So I think that age group in particular would be, really interested in any sessions providing.
Yeah, and that you are so right, and it's exactly the same this side as well. The industries that has taken a hit, and so yeah, like I said, anybody welcome in that age group. So let's see what we can do for them.
Yeah, I've absolutely loved this, Petrolene, this collaboration together. World Mental Health Day 2020. Let's make a difference in our community. Let's make a difference.
Yes. Yeah, and it was fantastic having the conversation with you, Carole. I think it was so useful. I do want to tell people who's listening and watching the video that if you need anything, do reach out to Carole or myself. Doesn't matter to who you reach out to, doesn't matter where you live. And if you thought you wanted to reach out to Carole and you reached accidentally out to me, I'll make sure you get back to her. So please do not sit there and thinking that you're going to try and beat whatever it is you need to overcome on your own. There are people that really, really want to help you. So you are not alone. And please get in contact. We would really, really love to see you at a better place, at least where you are now, so that you can take your life forward. But yeah, I have to thank you as well, Carole. Thank you so much for coming along. And maybe we'll do this again at some point.
Absolutely, would love to. And just about the contact details, I will put one for the Samaritans as well, which
Okay.
is it's an organisation. I don't know if it's in South Africa. It's a phone line if you're feeling, a really low mood. Somebody that will be able to take your call immediately. So, I mean, the main thing to remember is you're not alone. You're not alone. There's people just like you that want to talk to you exactly for who you are right now.
Right. Wonderful. Thanks, Carole. And we'll see everybody else again at some point. Bye.
Bye.